My name's Joel Sherman. I'm with Evan Schwartzmiller, and this is the Invent Podcast. On this week's episode of the Invent Podcast, Evan and I talk about setting goals, the importance of consistently setting goals, the right kinds of goals to set, and we close by talking about how to overcome adversity on your path to success. We hope you guys enjoy. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode of the Invent Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about goal setting. And before we get going, I'd like to just point out the fact that we are a quarter of the way done with 2019. And at this rate, we're going to be 80 years old next week.
Honestly, yeah, that's the truth. This year's flown by. So we've got a lot done this year, but like you said, we still have 3 quarters left, so there's plenty of time to get a lot of stuff in. So
I think that actually goes along really well with our topic this week of goal setting. Just a reminder that our New Year's goals are still going on, and we're 25% of the way done. So if you haven't started yours yet, or you have started it, you're not as far along as you need, you can kind of take a mental check here to address what you need to get done to finish those goals up for this year. I know me, I'm 7 books in. I'm trying to read 30 this year, so I'll definitely achieve that. I'm right on pace. A few other things that I definitely need to go back and check to see if I'm set to achieve them, but yeah, super excited.
And if you haven't been doing the best at that, now's a good time to get back on it. You know, it's never too late to get back on the rails. You know, make sure you're on the right track. So, you know, even if you look back and you say, "Wow, you know, haven't been doing the best job," right now is a good time to get back on track. And
don't use these next 9 months to push off starting another goal. You know, maybe have an April Fool's resolution or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the first topic we're going to be talking about today in regards to goal setting is the importance of it. So Evan, why don't you get us started with that?
Yeah, so we're just going to get right off the bat. Setting goals is super important. And one of the big things with that is exercising the will, being able to take control of your life, being able to say, I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. And if you start setting small goals, it's like exercising your will. It's like doing push-ups. You know, if you want to, make your arms stronger, your shoulders stronger. It's the same thing. Setting these small goals allows you to build up your strength, and it allows you to, in the future, take on bigger and more challenging goals.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can definitely dive into a little bit more. At our second point, one thing that I find important about the importance of goal setting is it helps you work towards and motivate you towards other things in your life. And for me, running this ultra marathon is super important. And the training for it not only has motivated me to keep going and to try to, accomplish the right training that I need to run the marathon, but it's also pushed me to start writing more, to do this podcast, and to try to take advantage of other opportunities that I've been presented, like that normally I wouldn't do. Like normally I wouldn't take advantage of.
Yeah. And no one's going to force you to achieve these goals. And that's one of the big things I want to talk about. You have to have the need and the want to do this. So it's important to look back and say, hey, I want to do this. This is something that I find important, something that I want to do, and you have to put your mind to it. And but at the same time, you don't want to ignore current situations and stuff. Like if something comes up and you say, yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and you're saying, you don't want to ignore what's going on around you. You don't want, your friends to say, hey, you want to do this? And you just completely ignore them for months on end, because you're trying to achieve this goal. But you want to make sure it's a priority in your life.
Yeah, and the example I used earlier with Evan, I was at a writing conference once, and Alice McDermott, she's an author, she said, treat it economically. When you're trying to save money, the thing you do is you pay yourself first. You need to be selfish in that aspect. You always put the money that you get first into your savings account before you do the other things that you need to do, okay? And achieving goals is similar. If you want to be a writer, you need to be selfish with your time. For me, personally, being a writer, I set aside a certain amount of time every day, and I always make sure that goes uninterrupted. I don't browse the internet. I don't check social media. I am focused on the work that I'm doing. And if that means my friends hit me up and say, hey, we're going to go eat dinner during my writing time, I'll say, sorry, I got to write, or sorry, I'm doing this. But one thing that Evan kind of hit on a little bit, what he said was missing out. And I think that a year ago, if you asked me, how do you achieve goals, it would have been head down, run after it, don't let anything interrupt you. Nothing can stop you from accomplishing your goals. But now that I look at it, I have a little bit more life experience. I think coming to college especially has opened my eyes to a lot of things. I would encourage people to go out and do things and experience things that otherwise they couldn't. Like if your friend comes to you and say, hey, you want to go drive to this mountain and do a hike? Yeah, go and experience that, because, you know, you're going to die. And I think that human experience and living and being in the world and present is so valuable and so important. And it doesn't take away from your goals. It actually aids your happiness, and it makes achieving your goals, I think, a little bit more sweet.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. You don't want to, close your eyes and run forward when there's all this great stuff around you. You want to make sure you're taking advantage of all the great opportunities we have, and we all have them. So just look around and say, hey, what can I do with the things that I have? What kind of goals should I set?
And I think, especially for me, I want to be a writer, and I primarily enjoy creative nonfiction. So that's going out and experiencing things and then kind of writing a narrative story about it. And so luckily for me, my passion is actually going out and doing those experiencing those things. And the importance of goals is just, once you find something that you love and that you want to chase after, it can be really awesome trying to achieve those goals.
Yeah, these goals don't have to be, terrible, awful things. A lot of people associate like New Year's resolutions with like suffering of some kind, like giving up this or, going to extraordinary lengths to do that. But these can be things you're passionate about. These can be things that you really enjoy. Maybe you want to get better at it, or maybe you want to do it more often. And Joel said this earlier, but allotting that time, saying, I'm going to do this from now and for an hour, setting that time every day, making sure it's part of your schedule. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself pushing it off or saying, oh, well, I'm busy, so I'll get to that, and then you don't. That's what I'm saying. It's important to make sure you've written that in your schedule, whether that's a mental note saying I'm going to do it, or actually writing it out in your schedule saying I'm going to do this from, hours A to B. So I think that's really important when it comes to goal setting, is having that time allotted for these activities.
And there's two things that you said there that I'd like to touch on a little bit more. And the first one is that there is the New Year's resolution where you're giving up something. Personally, I think there's a huge paradigm that we have in our culture where we have to give up something and we have to make sacrifices, and that is totally 100% true. If you want to get in good shape and have a nice body at the beach, you need to put in the work and suffer through the workouts. But what people don't realize is you can find a way of working out that you enjoy. If you want to play racquetball, go play racquetball. If lifting weights isn't your thing, then you don't have to. You can find other ways to achieve similar results. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that by changing these little frameworks that are in our head, for example, the paradigm that I'm talking about is, I have to sacrifice so much. If we tweak it to say, yeah, I have to sacrifice, but it can be in a fun way, then that makes a huge difference. And the second thing you talked about, we're going to get into later when it comes with dealing with adversity and goals. So I'll address that later. But
but it's just one of those things where I said this earlier, but it's like working your muscles. Doing push-ups, doing sit-ups, things like that. Those basic things. If you can do those correctly and do them enough, they build strength. And those strengths allow you to do other things, other activities. It's the same thing with goal setting. If you can set these small goals, you can then later take on bigger challenges. So maybe set daily goals about I'm going to do, I like the thing you're doing about reading a bunch of books, reading 30 books this year. You write and read every day. You set a goal for yourself. You say, I'm going to read this much today. And once you achieve that, that's one step closer to the bigger goal. And I think that's something a lot of people miss out on. They have these dreams and these goals that they have, but they don't see a way to get there. And if they just realize if they took it a little bit each day, they would get there. It's not so big if you break it up. And I think that really allows you to get at the heart of the matter when it comes to these goals.
Yeah, I'd like to say one more thing, and I think what you said and what I'm going to say will transition really well into our second point. But a good tip that I have with goal setting is doing really tiny things that count as little wins throughout the day. And I challenge you guys listening, and one thing that I do religiously, and Evan can vouch for this, is I make my bed every single morning. Mm-hmm. And it is literally impossible to have a bad morning if you make your bed. It doesn't matter if you spilled your coffee all over your clothes, if you missed breakfast, and the bus you ride is late to work, or whatever. Because you can always look at the morning and say, hey, at least I made my bed. And yeah, it might be a small, tiny little thing that doesn't really amount to anything at all. But if you look at it in that way, it makes a world of difference. And what you said earlier about me writing and reading every day, it's these little incremental goals. And when I achieve them, I look at them as little wins. And it not only does it motivate me, but it makes me feel good. And that leads us into our second point, which is the right kind of goals to set. So make sure you can accomplish the goals you set.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. You don't want to dive in too deep at first. You want to make sure it's something you want to do. Make sure they're achievable. You don't want to. There's a difference between setting a goal and wishful thinking. If you really want something and you're willing to strive for it, that's great. Go for it. But there are things in life that at the current moment might be too big. You might want to maybe work on it a little bit, kind of like I said, take it in increments. But you don't want to go all the way yet. That could be dangerous. So like we're just starting to get into climbing. We do rock climbing. Mostly indoor, but if my goal was to climb El Cap or something like that, I wouldn't go there right today and start climbing at the base. I wouldn't get very far, first of all, and if I did, it'd be pretty dangerous. But my goal could be get to the highest part of a course on the wall at our gym or something like that. So you want to set the right kind of goal. You don't want to jump too far into it.
You have to understand that big things can't come overnight, and that they won't. Yeah. And that they require hard work, dedication, extreme focus, and discipline. And taking something one day at a time will ensure that you stay on track, and it makes the process way easier. So if you break everything down into small steps so you don't really overwhelm yourself, it makes the world of difference. You can ask yourself every single day, what can I do today to get me an inch closer to my goal? And I love the Will Smith example, and I think we touched on it in a previous episode. You lay this brick perfectly as you can, and then tomorrow you put another brick, and then one day you have this beautiful cathedral. And it's just about making it so incremental that it's not hard. If you want to lose weight, you just got to eat healthy today, and then you do it every day. A lot of people don't realize that by making things hyper specific and breaking them down into these small increments, it makes goals more accepted. I think if you tell people about it, I want to do this crazy thing. Okay, but if you tell them these little tiny goals you have, so you get more support, and it'll make it easier and less overwhelming for you. Because ultimately, Evan and mine, our goal is to run a 100-mile race, and that is a very daunting task. And if we didn't take it one day at a time, one moment at a time, every mile at a time, we would never get to the end. And I know in the moment we're gonna have to. When we're on mile 1, we're not gonna be thinking about the 99 other miles. We're gonna be thinking about the next step we have to take, because that's the only way that mentally we're gonna be able to get through it, and that's the only way that strategically we're going to accomplish that big goal.
Yeah. If you don't do that, you'll get overwhelmed. And I think. You were using the 100-mile race as an example, but this goes for everything. Life's a journey, and it's kind of cliche, but it's true. You want to make sure you have your footing right. You use the step example, but this step. You want to make sure that your next step is solid. You want to make sure you're going in the right direction, and that's why setting the right goals is good, because you don't want to go headlong into something that you're not passionate about, or something that you reach the goal and you're like, wow, that wasn't worth it to me. You want to make sure it's something that it's worth your while, something that'll get you places. Losing weight's a big example. I'm definitely going through that process right now. I'm really trying to lose weight. Doing this running's really helping, but a lot of it's eating healthy. And like Joel said, it's one day at a time. It's not eating healthy for the rest of my life, it's eating healthy today. What can I do today? What can I not eat today that'll put me in a better place tomorrow? Or even what else can I eat instead of eating this piece of pizza? Can I have a salad or something like that? So these things are really applicable to daily life, and it's important to understand that we're all capable of this. If we set the right kind of goal, we can all do it. Setting goals aren't meant for. I don't know what's going there, but
One thing that I think is very funny is that we're all educated enough. You know how to lose weight. Everybody knows how to lose weight. Everybody knows how to become an all-star athlete. Everybody knows how. It's just a matter of doing it. The work is easy. The work is easy, but it's a matter of doing the work that a lot of people struggle with. You know what I mean? And I don't know what needs to shift. I think that's always going to be kind of a big issue, but I think it's super important for people to realize that the work is easy, but they need to find a motivation to push themselves.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or if it's like a humankind kind of thing, but we're always looking for the shortcut. We're always looking for the easy break, something like that. But when it comes to a lot of things in life, that's not how it works. We're not going to find that easy way out, and we're going to have to put in the work. And when it comes to goal setting, it's not any different. Especially like losing weight or running a 100-mile race. There's really no shortcut. If you really want to accomplish your goal, you have to put in the work. And that's kind of a cliche, like put in the work, but it's true. You need to put your head down sometimes and say, this is what I'm going to do, and no one's going to stop me.
And I love that example of there is no shortcut. I love that phrase because my personal example, I lost 50 pounds in high school, and there's no shortcut. You have to sweat. You have to grind. You have to give up things. You have to change things that are a part of your normal daily life. I couldn't drink soda anymore. I couldn't eat as much as I wanted to. I couldn't go watch something on YouTube. I had to go to the gym every day and work out. And it was the discipline of that, and it was me breaking it down into that increment that made me realize this is totally attainable. Totally attainable. And if you have a goal, I'm 100% sure you can smash it. I honestly believe everybody has the ability to do anything they want, break any record they want, or whatever the case may be. And it's just a matter of work and time that decides whether or not you succeed or you fail.
Yeah, I think this leads right into the next one, if you want to go there, with obstacles.
Dealing with adversity.
Yeah, I mean, that's there's going to be a lot of things that keep you from doing your goal. If it was easy, everyone would do it, that kind of thing. But that can work on a personal level. If it was easy, I would have done it before. These goals, there's a reason you set them. You obviously want to achieve them, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, a cakewalk. You're going to have to put in the work. There's going to be struggles. When people think of goal setting and it's a lot of like physical stuff. Like, I'm going to run this fast. I'm going to lift this much weight. But it doesn't have to be that. Like you said, like reading your book or, doing something academic or something of that nature. There's still going to be obstacles. It may not be physical, but it may be time constraints. You might say, I'm really busy right now, but that's an obstacle. Having the time of the day is something that I know I struggle with. So there's these obstacles, they present themselves in a lot of different ways. It's not always going to be a brick wall. So sometimes they're hard to identify.
And I'd like to touch on one little thing you said there with the time of the day.
Yeah.
And how passionate I am about this. This is something that I was going to talk about earlier. It is another paradigm in our culture that exists, that I don't have the time for this. I don't have the time for that. Oh, I would do this and go travel and do all these things, but I don't have the time. And don't get me wrong. I understand that you can't do everything. But if we start saying this is not a priority instead of I don't have the time, so much would change. And for all the 40-year-olds who have families out there who they can't quit their job and pursue their passion because they got to put their kids through school and they got to put food on the plate, I get it. But for people who haven't, committed themselves to all that, don't have all these priorities, if you can't work out every day because you don't have the time, it's because it's not a priority. You have 24 hours. Everybody has 24 hours. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about intentional living. You need to make things a priority, and you need to put things over others. You need to pay yourself first, or whatever the case may be. If you want to go to a movie instead of working out, understand that that's your choice. And understand that that is okay. It's okay if you want to go get ice cream instead of working out. It's 100% fine, but that's a choice. You have time to work out, but you chose to do something else with it.
Yeah, and that like only you can push yourself, and I think that kind of goes back. You know, inside you have to say, this is something I'm willing to do. This is something I'm willing to put the work in for. Others, you know, might try to discourage you. You know, but it's ultimately it's your choice. You know, you have the ability to say, you know, I choose to use my time this way, and I think a lot of times we kind of we're our own obstacle. We say, you know, whatever, I'll get to that later. Or you might even say, oh, it's not even worth it. You know, just kind of brush it off. You know, a lot of the times we're our own obstacle. And, you know, overcoming yourself, that kind of sounds weird, but like you want to kind of look at yourself and say, hey, what am I willing to do to get this done?
That's exactly the point I have. A lot of the adversity that you face comes from within. It's that easy route. It's that shortcut. Or it's convincing yourself that a day off or a few days off is okay. And those are excuses. And excuses are lies that we tell ourselves that keep us from executing. And I want to say that again because I think that's so important. Excuses are lies that we tell ourselves that keep us from executing. And don't get me wrong, I understand that everybody needs a break eventually, that you can't go 100% and work yourself into the dirt. But a lot of people convince themselves that they've earned a break. But in reality, like, maybe they haven't worked hard enough. And it's so important, I think, to be able to recognize when the work is done for the day. And for me, that is when I've read a certain amount, when I've written a certain amount, when I've worked out, and when I've got all my homework and everything done, or whatever the case may be, or the podcast. I make a list every single day of my goals, and then after I accomplish all of them, I'm like, okay, now I can relax. And I think people need to recognize that the things from within can be overcome, and the things that you're stopping yourself from doing are just little bumps in the road, and by practicing and repeatedly pushing against them and getting the work done and stopping procrastination, it gets easier and easier over time. And it's just something that needs to be worked on. It's exactly like push-ups, or it's the practicing of the will. Mm-hmm. Just get after it.
Yeah, it's like walking up a set of stairs. You know, by setting these goals, you're able to walk up the next step, and by completing it, you're able to, you know, take another step, and eventually you'll reach the top. And it's very much like that because, you know, when I mentioned before, we're doing climbing now. And one of the really cool things about that is, you know, you're not always going to get to the top every time, you know, especially when you're beginning. You may only get halfway or a quarter way up. But it's really easy to see your progress because you can get higher every time. And that's if you set a goal, say your goal is to get halfway up this time, it's easy to see it. It's easy to, you know, to be able to tell where you are. And I think that when it comes to a lot of our goals, setting these daily goals is like that. You know, it's like reaching the next rung on a ladder. If you can do it, you're one step closer. And that goes back to the daily routine thing that we've been nailing a lot.
That's a super interesting point, that these daily goals, like you said, they allow us to see our progress. And if we want to run 100 miles in 6 months, I'm not going to see that until 6 months. Mm-hmm. But if my training says I have to run 10 miles today and I run 10 miles today, that's something physical that I can say, well, I did that. Or if you wake up every morning and you're like, the ultimate goal is to have a good day. I'm not going to know I had a good day until the end of the day. But if I make my bed in the morning, that's something I can look back on.
Yeah, it's another step in the staircase. And, you know, I think going back to overcoming obstacles, sometimes there's stuff in the way. Sometimes there's, stuff on the stairs that we have to either move or clean off, and that's all personal. That's all an exercise of your will. That's saying I'm able to do this.
Take the vacuum and get the dust out of there, dude.
Yeah, yourself. Take it upon yourself to fix these problems, to overcome these obstacles, and kind of going back to this, but a lot of it is you. Saying, oh well, this obstacle's too big. Say it is an exterior thing. Say you're like time. Oh, I don't have to. I have there's too much going on. I'm too busy. I don't have enough time to do this. You have to make the time. Everyone has the same amount of time. No one's going to clear your schedule for you. This is something that you have to do.
There's something that all excuses have in common, and that is the word but. I want to travel, but I don't have the time. I want to lose weight, but I don't have the time. I want to get an A in class, but
don't want to study.
I don't want to study. As soon as you say but, you failed. Try again. That doesn't mean, it's over. That means say it again, but without an excuse. Instead of saying, I want to study, but I want to study. I want to get an A in this class, but no, you want to get an A in this class. And then you say, okay, how do I do that? I study every single night this much. I read this chapter for homework. I turn this assignment in. And it's every day, It's in 3 months from now when the class is over, what have I done every single day to get an A? So by eliminating that but, you can do anything.
Yeah, that is a really good way to put it. That is an extremely good way to put it. And it's stuff like that allows you to kind of visualize this. And that's something that's hard to do. Goal setting and stuff. It's very, I don't know what to say, like, not dreamy, but it's very, I don't know, how'd you say that?
I don't know, dude. I just thought of this crazy slogan. Yeah. Cut the butts, dude. Cut the butts.
That's a good bumper sticker.
Yeah, man.
That is a really good bumper sticker. Cut the butts.
The new Invent podcast slogan is #cut the butts.
Yeah, that's official. That's funny.
That's a great place, I think, that we can wrap it up. Unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, I think it's a good place.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Cut the butts. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed, we would appreciate any support and subscriptions on the platform that you listen. In honor of the theme of this episode, our end quote is by motivational speaker and author of dozens of books, Les Brown. He said, "If you set goals and go after them with all the determination you can muster, your gifts will take you places that will amaze you."